It is warm, and I apparently value the audio quality over my comfort because I didn't want to keep my fan blasting in case that disrupted it. It probably wouldn't, but let's not take the risk. But before I cook myself into an early grave, let's crack on with talking about Season 6, Episode 2 of Black Mirror, Loch Henry. And there's not really much to analyse in this. There's a couple of bits that maybe I can do towards the end, but the stuff here is very much on the surface, kind of like this whole season is actually a little more in your face with what it's trying to say, if it's trying to say anything at all. And that's a whole other debate that maybe I'll get to in subsequent episodes. But the stuff that is under the surface does interest me a little, so I will still do a bit. It's fine. I haven't completely forgotten that this is an analysis. But this is one of those episodes that again is carried by great performances. Three particular standouts: Daniel Portman, Monica Dolan and John Hannah, because he's great in everything he does. Stuff that isn't great that he's in, he never turns in a bad performance. He's such a good actor. Monica Dolan's one of those people who I never really saw anywhere for a while, and now she's cropping up in so many things, and I'm happy for it. She's really good. She can sell absolute insanity, like the I can't say the actual words, but F and C rant that she has towards the end of this episode. But for the rest, for the majority of the episode, she's caring mother trying to support her son, who wants to just make this little documentary that then becomes another little documentary. And Daniel Portman is the much needed levity as Stuart here. Whilst some might argue levity about this subject matter at all is wrong, humans are like that. Gallows humour is a thing, black humour is a thing, as it's sometimes been called. It is one of those things that we do laugh at the dark stuff because it's how we can deal with it, how we can move past it. I've often said, if anything happens to me, you'll know when I'm at a point that I can process it and deal with it because I will joke about it. That's how it works. So I totally get it, and for a section of this episode, it does keep straight, and it's a good, relevant section, the whole bit with Pia and Janet. There is no humour until, I guess, a kind of, again, a dark humour of her expletive rant. But with Davis, you know, he wants to make a film. It doesn't have to be some amazing thing. It can play, you know, on the indie circuit. He's quite happy just making and creating stuff. This might be picked up later in my analysis. He's happy just creating, but Pia wants something sensational. And this episode, like I say, it's very much on the surface. It's mocking that thing of people selling out to give us these true crime, especially on streaming services. There's so many things out there, like Making a Murderer, The Dharma Thing, etc. Because it's fascinating, I will not lie. I was almost swayed into taking the criminology or the forensic psychology option instead of the counselling. But I can't help as many people directly with that. I can always do modules that are about that, fine. And we will touch on all aspects throughout the course. But I was nearly swayed because it does fascinate me. And from an evolutionary perspective, it's also very advantageous. We need to know what to avoid. Like when, you know, we were very primitive, we'd see our mate eat some purple berries, and then he'd be dead a week later, so we'd go, don't eat those purple berries. And that's how you survive, and your genes pass on, and people know then don't eat those berries. But now we don't need that so much. So our tendency to focus on the negative, like I say, that was once an evolutionary advantage, we now channel it into focusing on what went wrong when we're dealing with a company and making complaints rather than commendations, or watching true crime. And some of it is, you know, general morbid curiosity. Again, as humans, we are very curious creatures. We are, I mean, that's how we've survived. That's how we've got to the point that we are. Our technological advances have all been because of, what if we did this? Or how can I deal with X, Y, or Z problem in a different way? And so, yeah, I can totally understand wanting to make that. But I do think it's Pia's project more than Davis's. You see him kind of almost feel like he has to, and I think that long shot of him at the end, that sad shot, is like, well, yeah, I've got all this, but all of this wouldn't have happened if we'd have gone with the egg guy. As weird as it sounds, that is literally the case here. If they'd have gone and seen the egg guy instead, it would have been very different. Pia would have been alive. I've written a note of Chekhov's rivers, because part of the whole story of Ian Adair is he wasn't found out for a while because it's a remote area. Rivers can just suddenly sweep people away if they're not familiar. Very good excuse. And that's what we see with Pia at the end. It isn't Janet that does her in. I mean, indirectly, yes, because she's terrified of her after she realises what she used to do. But directly, she slips and falls and the river carries her off. So, yeah, it's one of those where there isn't really much under the surface. It's very much out there. I love the little dig at Bergerac. I've never watched Bergerac in my life. And the only way that they could make sure that Davis probably wouldn't watch them is having recordings of Bergerac that they then put that on the end of. So, yeah, and maybe she did really like John Ellis's Behind. I don't know. But this is a good episode for what it is. But I've seen people making comments online. I don't like to look at reviews, I know, but I accidentally caught one. I was checking trivia, and someone was saying, like, it isn't Black Mirror, and I think that's what people feel a lot of this season. But I'm going to quickly sidebar before I go back to that, because that does lead me into the more analytical part of the video. But when I was looking up the trivia and everything like that, I did see that people had spotted the Waldo sticker and the Tuckersoft sticker. No one seems to have commented on the Archangel sticker that's just as prominent and obvious. And of course that is an episode, the protections of children thing. And possibly an inverted white bear, like a black version, because I could see like the down bar and the splitting off into the two channels. So it's very possible that that is like the white bear logo, but black. And that will come back in a few episodes' time, of course. But Black Mirror is very self-referential, and does this mean that that's all connected? Maybe, maybe not. I'm starting to kind of tear away from that in this season. There's elements that link, granted, but I think there's a lot more just, it's there as an Easter egg, which leads me back to my analytical point. Davis, like I say, is a creative. He wants to do fun things and little projects of his own, but someone wants him to do this big thing because it's what sells. Does that sound like that might be the position Charlie Brooker's in? When I was looking at trivia, when I was looking up the information, I did see someone say, this doesn't feel like Black Mirror. Black Mirror is meant to be what if technology, but bad, like I said last episode, and a few times, what if your computer was evil, what if your phone was evil, etc. Now, in this episode, I can give it a bit of a pass because technology is the reason that the whole situation happens. The videos are what leads them to realising what exactly went on back in the 90s. But further episodes in this season, I mean, the next one is very Black Mirror, but after that, it isn't. And is Davis an analogue for Charlie Brooker? Does he feel that he's so tied to Black Mirror that to do something like it, even if it was more horror focused, wouldn't get off the ground because people wouldn't know it's Black Mirror? Not many people probably know Charlie Brooker's name first off. They go, Charlie Brooker, oh, the Black Mirror guy, or that kind of thing. So he's very intrinsically linked. So pivoting off for something else might be difficult, and he may have contractual obligations that means he's got to do this. That might be why it took 4 years. I might be reaching here. I don't look at interviews or anything like that before I've done the entire series. So once I've come to the end of it, I might go back and find an interview where he says, that was just a joke. I was like, I want people to worry about me. It could be the case. But I mean, if you know, please leave it in the comments. I'll read them at some point. But hopefully once I've got all the other videos out though, so I don't get swayed. But yeah, this episode was fine. Like I say, it doesn't necessarily feel like the classic Black Mirror technological issues and, what about, or how should we be careful with technology for the future? This is more the technology of the past can bite us in John Nettles' fine behind. So I'm going to end, as I like to do, on a high note rather than on John Nettles' behind and Charlie Brooker trapped in Netflix's basement making more Black Mirror. And I don't tend to look at credits past who played that so I can properly reference them. But I spotted 4 words, and it gave me pause, and I was like, I need to mention this. During the BAFTA scene, the announcer who says, Kirsty Wood will now read the nominations, is Richard Ayoade. That's fine. If he was credited as BAFTA announcer, I wouldn't be saying anything about it. Maybe just, it's nice to hear him. His credit is his own actual voice. That's how I know that kind of Brooker probably is fine, I hope. But I just love that idea of a credit of his own actual voice. Not himself, his own actual voice. I respect it, and that's why I wanted to end on it. Give us a laugh until next episode where That's heavy. I hope you'll join me for it and everything else, but thank you very much as always for watching, and until next time, take care. And be careful of Scottish women.